Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Naked Truth Podcast.
Take you made that?
All right, we're back with another episode of The Naked Truth. This episode is in alignment with the current month that we're going through. It's June 2024, and we got something to talk about. We got to talk about the proverbial elephant in the room. Y'all ready to talk about it?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Is it an elephant in the room?
I don't know. Is there an elephant in the room?
I think there might be.
I mean, today is June 4th, and if you are a member of a D9 organization, you have noticed that something has been mentioned by certain groups, and it has not been mentioned by another group. We still don't know what the elephant in the room is.
Nah, you're gonna have to break it down for him.
All right. Well, as of June 4th, the sororities of the Divine Nine, which is known as the National Panhellenic Council, NPHC, has all posted their shout out or recognition of June as Pride Month, recognizing their the contributions, if not at least their membership, that consists of members of the LGBTQ plus members. However, we have fraternities, which, of course, fraternities are groups made of male identifying members who have yet to acknowledge that month, this month. And so the question is, will they, won't they, should they? There's a lot of questions.
They won't, but they should.
Well, we don't know. Today is June 4th. So we don't know. We got, 26 more days in June? And
They
should it
won't,
matter? Should it
but they
matter if they
should.
posted on June 30th? At least they recognize it on that one day, right? So
It
does it
definitely
matter?
matters.
Well, I'm playing the devil's advocate here today.
So,
And
so
can't wait to walk down this tight line of will they, should they, won't they? What is the rules? What are the rules for posting and recognizing Pride Month? Should it be done on the first of the month? Should it be done in the middle of the month? Should other recognitions for the month of June be placed before? Like, what do we think?
So here's my thing, right? It should be done at the beginning of the month. Yes, June is a month full of other things, like it's also Caribbean month. Caribbean American, yes, thank you.
Which I am a member.
Yes, you are.
Born and raised.
But here's my thing, right? There are 24 hours in a day. You can have multiple posts promoting and celebrating all of those things for this month on that day. And it doesn't have to be a competition of, well, if I celebrate Pride on this day, then the Caribbean Americans are going to feel a certain type of way. Or if I celebrate Caribbean American, then the Pride people, the LGBTQ plus community is going to feel a certain type of way. Why can't everyone be celebrated on that day with multiple posts?
Well, so that's one argument, right? what if people are like, well, we like to have like only like one marketing campaign per day, like, and so that's why they don't like to have multiple activities posted on the same day. What about that?
And so my response to that would be, you can do that. On Instagram, Facebook, you can have one major post and have different what's it called? What'd you say?
Channels.
Channels or slides or whatever you want to call it, and it just be one major post.
Oh, so you mean so post one post but have different, like a carousel? That's really what you meant.
Yes. Yes.
I don't think fraternities want to acknowledge something they don't stand with.
They don't what? Say that again.
I don't think fraternities want to acknowledge something they don't outwardly stand with.
Who is the voice of the fraternity? Ooh.
The people.
Who is the voice? Who is the loudest voice? Who is the controlling voice? Is it the general board? Is it the members? Who determines what is the voice of a fraternity?
Well, you have the decision makers, you got the body, and then I think outside of the regular body, you got, everybody else that kind of falls somewhere scattered about. But I think
People
if you're
who pay
talking
their
about,
dues.
yeah, the people who do or do not pay their dues. But I think if you're looking at who's kind of like majority in power right now as it sits, it's like we're on the cusp before we get to like the more progressive generations really like leading the forefront. So like I think for a lot of the fraternities, it's certain things that they've been able to not accept or not openly accept and kind of fly under the radar with it because there's a general consensus that like it's almost like the don't ask, don't tell is still, very prominent or prevalent in the community. So they feel like I feel like a lot of it is fear. It's like, oh my God, if we acknowledge it, then what's gonna happen to us, So
So avoiding acknowledging a month to recognize the existence of people
mhm.
does not erase their existence.
It doesn't. It doesn't. But
So,
like
so what are you going to do about the fact that they still exist in your organization, and you're pretending like they don't exist?
And they are very prevalent in your organization. Here's the thing that we have to acknowledge, right, across all fraternities. A lot of people that are leaders in their respective organizations are members of the LGBTQ plus community. So why would we not acknowledge those people who carry our organizations on their back by not only paying dues? Some of them are life members. Some of them are state leaders, regional leaders, national leaders. Some of them are leaders in their community. Like, why would we not support that?
Because, like Eddie Lee said, don't ask, don't tell. You are doing everything in the name of Sigma, but you are not allowed to have your identity be worn at the same time.
Yeah, because it's not like the good won't be celebrated if they raise $100,000 or they win congressman or they I don't know, go to the moon, or something like that. That part of it is going to be very much acknowledged because that's part of the publicity that the organizations want to align with. But if you have people who have personal about that, and they're also the decision makers, or at least the gatekeepers to what people kind of stand for or stand with or align with on a public spectrum, then I think you're kind of going to always run into that. I mean, I would call it a mishap. I don't think anything's going to happen off of saying, Happy Pride Month and keeping it pushing. But people. I mean, it's still a big thing for a lot of people. Like people still think if they if they maneuver around or in alignment with anybody who falls under the LGBTQ, it's going to magically turn you into a member, you know? And it's very backwards way of thinking, but
Well,
you know.
here's two arguments. We have the argument of, does it even matter to you as an individual if you are a member of the LGBTQ plus community that your fraternity or organization, because it could be the sororities, and it wasn't always that way, but they've clearly shown progressive movements. Does it matter if your organization does not recognize this much? Should it matter?
Yes, it absolutely should. And as a member of the community, I am very disappointed that it was not recognized. Right. So here's my thought process. Right. I agree with everything that Eddie Lee has said. Recognizing pride or celebrating pride or whatever you want to call it it's not going to change the organization or make the organization seem gay, right? We are in a time now, this is 2024, where corporate stores, corporate sponsorships, a lot of big name organizations are now being more progressive and celebrating pride, right? Because they understand that there are people within their organizations and their corporations and things like that that are part of the community that make their organizations and corporations what they are. And so it is the right thing to do to be able to celebrate everybody that is a part of that community. For me, I feel like it's almost like a slap in the face. You want me to pay my money, you want me to be active, you want me to do all of these things for this organization, but you can't recognize me and the people in my community for who I am. And it feels like for an organization, right, of the caliber of our organizations and what we stand for, we are doing the same thing to the LGBTQ plus community that white people did to us.
But their argument, Antoine, is that you bring Antoine, the Sigma, to the table or whatever organization that you are a part of, but your identity should take the backseat. Can you separate the two?
No, and I shouldn't have to. When I come to the table, I am Antoine the Sigma. I'm Antoine the gay man. I'm Antoine the preacher. I am not going to change my identity or who I am for somebody else. You either have to accept all of me or nothing.
So all of you would include, if you were to then be interested in wearing non-traditional men's clothing or appearances that are not associated with what typically is identifiable as a cisgender man, you're saying that they need to accept that as well?
So here's the thing of that. I feel like, one, people's clothing do not denote their identity, right? Because there's a viral video of a straight man that wears dresses and heels. So, one, people's clothing does not denote their identity. Two, at the same time, I also understand that I am a part of an organization, and I have to always represent the organization to the best of my ability, right? I have to safeguard the organization and all of those things. And so for me, I am always going to make sure that I look the part that represents the brand of the organization. But that does not change who I sleep with behind closed doors. That does not change that I am a Black gay man. That does not change any of those things just because I choose not to wear non-traditional clothing that some members of the community may wear. I think at the end of the day, it's all about time and place.
Where is the time? Where is the place?
At non-related fraternal organization functions.
But if it's at non-related fraternal functions, then what's the problem with the fraternity not acknowledging it?
Or it sounds like you could turn it on and off. So why can't you turn it on, turn it off while you're in a fraternity function?
So here's the thing, right? It's not a thing of turning it off and on. And the problem of the organization not recognizing it is just because I choose not to do that at fraternity related functions doesn't change who I am as a person. I'm still a Black gay man, regardless whether I wear non-traditional clothing at non-fraternity related functions or whatever. I'm at the end of the day, I am still a Black gay man. It's just like saying I can't change the color of my skin. I'm always going to be a Black man. You know what I'm saying? So regardless, the fraternity should still recognize, because I am a member of your organization, and that is how I identify. Now, as it relates to turning it off and on, I don't think it's necessarily a thing of turning it off and on. I think it's more so of a thing of being respectful, right? As a Black gay man, there are certain things I wouldn't do at my mother's house out of respect. In my mind, in my opinion, it's the same thing with your fraternity. There are certain things that I may wear at a non-fraternal organization function that I would not necessarily wear something fraternity related because out of respect.
Right. So the discussion is, if you know that decorum, why can't all gays use that same decorum? Because some gays are like, no, I'm not separating it. I'm coming as I am because that's how I woke up this morning and that's how I feel like dressing. And I'm going to wear that even to our fraternity function.
I think it's a number of things. I think one, it's generations, like the time periods of when the age gap, right? I think also it's teaching, right? I think a lot of older gays who are older in age have that mindset of, out of respect, I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z because I'm going to safeguard the reputation of my fraternity, right? Because that is kind of like how we were raised, right? When we were growing up, we knew that you don't do certain things at your mom's house, your aunt's house, your grandma's house out of respect, right? Prime example. My grandmother was a very sanctified, church-going woman, right? She didn't believe in going to the movies. She thought going to the movies was a sin. She thought playing cards was a sin. All of that was a sin, right? Almost daggone near watching TV was a sin.
Well, we love her.
So when you're at grandma's house, you don't play cards. You don't talk about going to the movies out of respect, because you know grandma is going to blast you and tell you you're going to hell.
We ain't finna be at grandma's house too much longer. You feel me? It's gonna be a quick trip. It's gonna be a quick trip. I don't know. I think I can understand the nature of respect to a certain extent, but at the same time, I also think that, like, how much of it is respect, and then how much of it is an understanding that there isn't an understanding on the back end, or maybe even a respect for that personality.
Well,
You know,
that's a good question, because I was going to say the other side of the coin for that was, Antoine, what if this was what they're telling you not to do or what you shouldn't do out of respect for your house is something that you would do in your household, but you knew that it was not accepted in that household, so you had to comply because you lived there. That was your residence.
Yeah.
Now that you have your own house, you have your own place, that you don't think it's offensive or whatever, but those individuals are now in your household. Like, does that mean that you stop being, who you are or doing those things because you're no longer in their space?
No. So here is my thought process, right? What I do in my house, the rules I set for my house is my house. And you have to, when you come to my house, you have to abide by my rules. So if you don't like the rules that I have set forth in my house, then there's no need for you to come to my house.
Well, then one would argue, what if the fraternity is saying you came to their house
Yeah.
and now you got to do their rules, you got to
Mhm.
respect their role, their whatever? Like, what do we
And
say
I'm
about that
and so
regard?
so for me, because I'm older, right? I'm okay with that because I understand that I joined this organization that is I'm
Be
trying to be
careful.
politically correct
Be
here.
careful. Do not bring reproach.
Right. I joined this organization and I made an oath and a promise that I would safeguard this organization. I would not bring any reproach to it and all of those things. So in my mind, right? Yes, I came to my organization's house. If that is not what they condone or like, then I am going to adhere to that. But that still does not erase who I am as a person.
What if they said they didn't know you who you were as a person when they picked you to join, and so now you presented
Well, you know now.
Antoine one person, and now you're Antoine the other person, and so
Well,
they're
you
like,
know
"Whoa!
now.
If we had known, we wouldn't have picked you."
And that would have been your loss.
Well, I mean, I think that's a tricky situation because like how much of it is, which is why I think if we're in a situation where it's day 4 and ain't nothing came, and from what I know, given the rules I've played, I think it's just one of those things where like the old guard who stand on the other side of the fence are not necessarily going to acknowledge that, for better or for worse. Like, and maybe it's not necessarily coming from a place of hate or disdain. Maybe it's just more so like, you know what, if we acknowledge this, we gotta open up a can of worms that it would be much easier to kick this can down the road until a generation that has either been open the can of worms, accepted it, whatever, is much more unstuck in their ways to deal with.
But,
And
what really is a can of worms other than I just acknowledge Antoine is gay? I say, hey, happy Pride Month, and I keep it moving. Next business. Like,
But
what?
the can of worms is all the devil advocates questions that you ask, because now it's like, okay, if I accept the if I accept your identity, then eventually, maybe not now, but eventually, the first step is just accepting the identity or acknowledging the identity.
Mhm.
After the acknowledgement is probably more of an acceptance of the identity. After an acceptance of the identity is all the other things that may come with it. So now,
What are these other things? That's what I'm like. What is so?
like how you said,
Well,
if they're coming dressed a certain way, or if there's mannerisms that wouldn't have been accepted before, or people would have still threw on their suit, and kind of just kept all that other stuff for outside of grandma's house. Now they're like, hey, my feet is up on her nice furniture, we eating off the fine china. Like, so I think it's a combination of fear, but then also like,
It's fear of the unknown because we don't
yeah,
know if anybody's going to do those things.
we don't.
I think one of the things that wasn't mentioned is I think people think if they acknowledge it, then we become the gay frat, right? And that's how society will view you. And people don't want their organization to be viewed as the gay fraternity.
But if it's not a fraternity founded for gays or promotes gays or whatever, it just has gay members, is it really a gay fraternity? Because if that's the
No,
case,
it's
then
not.
every
But
organization is gay, because there's gays in everything. There's gays in politics. There's gays. Your boss might be gay. Your church member, your pastor might be gay. Like, there's a whole lot of stuff where people could be gay, but we don't associate that being the first like adjective of whatever that entity is being described as.
Yeah, but I think there's a different level of acceptance for something that is a little bit more out in the open versus versus you're already buying a public perception of some whatever is left of the whole mysterious mystique around fraternities. So like a lot of it is already unknown. So and as we can see in pop culture, public perception, like 90% of people can't name the like what fraternities do outside of stroll, step, like hop, whatever. Like they can't name any of that type of stuff. So if something as big as like a cultural discussion as gay or straight gets labeled on an organization, I don't see that as like a oh, this will pass type of conversation. So I think it could become a situation where, oh, this is labeled as the gay fraternity. I mean, shit, we've seen it from something as small as chapters where you quote unquote let one or two in, and now you're the gay chapter, so on and so forth. And people have that belief, and they ain't too far removed from my generation. So
But
it's like,
but people are gay. We realize that.
yes, we under,
so
but but
let's
we have
call a
we
thing what it is. Let's call the thing
yeah
what it is. It's homophobia. It's
yeah
toxic
like it's not
masculinity
a
and homophobia.
it's I don't think as accepting as the world has become, I don't think those things just go away on the masses because certain people are able to have a certain level of acceptance. I think when you look at the traditional sense of masculinity and some of the pillars that hold that up, and then anything that stands even remotely against that, people can label it toxic or not, but anything that stands remotely against that is already seen as the enemy to what the old guard of masculinity is. So if you're just taking it from that perspective, anybody who tries to look at the of what a fraternity could be or what a fraternity presents to be, well, a little bit of that is a chink in the armor if you're now turning around and saying, oh, it's more gay members in it, because the uneducated or homophobic thought is, well, if it's accepting of this, what else is it accepting of? And then I don't want to be anywhere a part of that because I don't want to be influenced by that.
Well,
Is that real? No, but
let me ask this question.
hmm
Do heterosexual people get to leave their heterosexual identities at the door when they enter a fraternal organization?
hell no.
So then why is it that we're asking homosexuals to leave their identities at the door?
Because it's like asking the world to conform to being left-handed for a day or a month
I
when we
think
know that that's not how the world's set up.
I think it's more so a misconception of what being gay is, right?
Right.
And I blame media for this, right?
Sure.
Because for so long, right, even in some of our favorite movies from back in the day, right, in the 80s and 90s, for so long, being gay has been very flamboyant, it's been very feminine, it's been very much being a woman, right? And that is the negative connotation of being gay that a lot of the old guard grew up with, right? That has been passed down from generation to generation. And then, even as we begin to progress, we still saw the same thing in media, in reality TV, right? The only gays that we saw were very feminine, messy, men that wanted to be like women. And so when people associate that with the word gay, that's what they think they're going to get if somebody gay joins their organization, or they are named or cloned the gay organization or the gay chapter, which is could be the farthest thing from the truth, right? Because that is only one small, minuscule fraction of being gay. There are so many different facets of what a gay person could look like, how a gay person could act, how a gay person identifies, that you cannot box all gay people or put all gay people into a box based off of perception that you have seen on TV and in movies.
Right, just like you couldn't put all black people in the same box. You couldn't put all Caribbean people. Please don't put me in the same box, because I love all my Jamaicans. But if I hear one more time, "Oh, you're Jamaican," I am not Jamaican.
Relax.
So I don't care if I get some strays because I mentioned the Jamaicans, but there are other islands in the Caribbean.
It's the best. It's the best box to be in. Okay.
Okay. I don't want to be misidentified again. I'm putting it out for the masses to hear. This accent is not a Jamaican accent. But anyway, but my point is, like, so my point was to lead towards the question of, since we can't put everybody in the same box, right? Is it fair that people say, well, I'm cool with the masculine appearing gays, it's the feminine gays that get that, like, rile me up? Because at the end of the day, they're still part of the same spectrum of gay.
No, it's not fair. I think we should accept everybody for who they are. Why can't we just love and accept everybody for who they are, whether they're masculine, feminine, or whatever the case may be, right? Like, I think we put too much. I'm going to say it this way. I think a lot of times we want to be God, right? We want to put so much judgment on people for who they are and the decisions and the choices that they make, when that is not our job. Our job is only to love and accept people for who they are. Point blank, period. That's it.
Yeah, but this is the real world. Niggas don't do that shit.
Well, we know that.
So I think if you're gonna go about this from the standpoint of making a way or making a change, then you have to understand where's people's hate coming from, and how do we mediate the conversations around curtailing people's hate.
But this is the issue that I have, right? And this goes into what you were saying about curtailing people's hate and understanding where people's hate come from. People will have more hate for a gay person than they will a pedophile.
I don't think so.
I do.
Whoa.
I do.
That's a crazy statement.
And it's a true statement. Let me give you examples. In our organizations, we have had people that have been charged with pedophilia. Yes, thank you. Of our younger auxiliary groups. They don't get nearly as much hate or talked about nearly as much as a gay person does. Why is that?
But is that the same? Well, wait, let's back up. You're saying that of the same sex, gender, that because the pedophilia is accepted more than the gay person?
I'm not saying it's accepted more. What I'm saying is the hate of the outcry is not talked about. So let me say it this way. We'll sweep the pedophilia situation under the rug and handle that behind closed doors, but we'll outwardly outcry somebody that is gay.
But I think that's more so like, I feel like if something like, because this is all coming from a standpoint of like lack of acknowledgement, right? So it's like pedophilia of all things, like that's very dark. It's very dark. So it's like, who wants to even, like, I'm like, I don't even want to touch that right now. Like, That's because that's just a whole nother different realm. Whereas, like, yeah, we're at the point where it's like maybe a more outwardly or outspoken thing of like hate, but like realistically, hate and love is the same thing. So it's like at the very least, even if people is hating on people of that community, I mean, I want to walk this lightly, but even if people is hating on that, there's a little bit more of an acknowledgement and a little bit more of a sight, even if the site is dysfunctional or altered. So like, I don't know if we can say like, yeah, they're gonna get outward, but like, I don't think anybody is sitting around talking about, yo, we got people who touch kids in the room, and we rocking with that in any state. Like you might have some folks where it's like, all right, if a gay person in the room, they uncomfortable, but they just gonna have to deal with that uncomfort. Whereas I feel like gay and straight alike is gonna look at the dude who or the woman who do some stuff like that, like, yo, it's up for you, bro. Like we not tolerating that under any circumstances. I don't know.
Well,
That's a crazy statement.
I want to clean up. I want us to be responsible. So pedophilia is separate from homosexuality or any type of
For sure.
Absolutely.
on the
Yes.
spectrum. Pedophilia is wrong regardless if it is between people of the same gender or opposite genders. No one should be touching kids at all, period. Let's clean that up real quick. And I think what Antoine is trying to say, if I can speak for you, is that the identity is somehow elevated more than something that is, worse. That could include pedophilia or whatever, but not necessarily pedophilia. It could be an abusive person, someone who beats on their spouse or whoever would be accepted possibly better than a identifying member of the LGBTQ plus community. Somebody who cheats, steals, whatever. It's usually like I think, is that what you're trying to point to, Antoine? I don't want to speak for you. Are you saying that there are other sins that are accepted better than the sin of identity of being gay?
Yes, that is what I'm saying. But the reason why I used the pedophilia excuse is because I know people in fraternity organizations, right, that have covered up people that have, or covered for people that have done that type of action, and then when it later comes out, it's a big deal, but it's not a big deal of this is wrong. We need to make sure that we have proper safeguards, X, Y, and Z, this, that, and the other, to make sure that this never happens again. It's more of, oh, this was wrong. That person was dealt with. They're kicked out of the organization, right? Okay, fine, perfect. The minute something gay happens in a fraternity, it is a constant discussion every day, hour after hour, minute after minute. It's like we spend so much time talking about gay people that we don't really address the issues that we have internally within our own organization that have nothing to do, that it way less or have nothing to do with somebody being gay, if that makes sense.
So are you saying that in certain spaces, and I'll even be adventurous to include an identity of that space, a space that is normally a heteronormative space, a space for heterosexuals to feel comfortable and safe, that the topic of homosexuality is brought up, or it's brought up more frequently than the discussion of other offenses?
Correct. Yes.
But why is that? Why are heterosexuals more obsessed with the topic of homosexuality than other topics?
I mean, people have a tendency to harp on their fears. So
Fair.
the fear is that age old thing of like, yo, of if I'm accepting of the LGBTQ community, or if we're speaking for men, if I'm accepting of anything that is quote unquote gay, then all of a sudden I'm gonna turn gay. Or even if it's not that, that label of being gay is going to be placed on you. So I think from there it's like, okay, well, like even my homies, like they can't go without saying pause, or I mean, I didn't say no Diddy. Like it just from the standpoint of like, hey, this came out in a way, but before anybody tries to throw that label, I acknowledge that it came out in a way in the common understanding of no homo or no Diddy or pause or whatever, so on and so forth. And like those are still conversations and things that are very pertinent in our culture right now, regardless of how accepting we are. I know gay people who do it. I'm like, yo, but what the like, I don't, so
So let's talk about, can heterosexuals be around gay people and not catch it like a
yeah,
cold? Like, is it
Absolutely.
for
is it
sure.
possible that, like, because like how do people become homosexual if they become one? Like, is this a thing that you know? Well, let's talk about that identity.
Uh,
This
Are
is the
you
thing that
born with
straight
it? Is
people
it
have to.
something you learn?
This is
as
the thing
as
that
a,
straight people have to understand, right? Just because somebody is gay doesn't mean that they want you. And there is this big misconception that a
You
gay
don't want all the
man wants
men in the
every straight
world.
man that they see.
You don't want every man in the world.
No, no, I don't.
That's not what gay means. That you just want, you desire all men, anybody that has a penis and a testicle walking down the street. That's what you want.
That's definitely not what it means. Because that's not what heterosexual means.
Exactly.
So
So let's talk about,
you
do you
disagree?
say
You
every
disagree?
heterosexual man is attracted to every woman that's walking down the street?
no,
Everyone,
well, okay, every's kind of crazy. Every's
right?
kind of
So that's
crazy,
what I'm saying.
but I could dare to say that like moderately attractive, she gonna get at least a glance.
So you're saying
So
if you're a moderately attractive heterosexual male, you should feel insecure in gay spaces?
no, I think because it's not. I don't even think it's a fear of being like seen as attractive. I think it's a fear of like catching the gay in a sense. Like it's not necessarily of, oh my god, if a man sees me as like that. Like I think it's more of, well, if I walk a certain way, talk a certain way, wear a certain thing, so on and so forth, I'm automatically going to catch that perception. And if I catch that perception, in like a small negative way, it's just people looking at you like you soft. In a
So wait, wait,
in
wait.
a in a in a
Let-
larger negative. Go ahead, huh?
No, I'm just gonna say. So if a Christian and a Muslim are in the same room,
Yeah.
then because I'm a Christian and my Christian people see me with my Muslim friend, they're gonna start assuming that I'm Muslim now because I'm hanging with a Muslim friend. Like, how does that? Like, I mean,
Nah, but if they see you start throwing on the you know what I'm saying, the dashiki or something, they're gonna be like, yo, what's going on, bro?
right, but if you're not gay,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you're not gay, right?
Yeah,
That's
but I think that's also the thing, if we're, because it's like we can make it gay or straight, but at least from my understanding, like with the LGBTQ community, the Q is queer, and queer doesn't necessarily lean towards who you sleep with, but more so mannerisms that you pick up or things that are kind of outside of the relative norm. So like a queer man may not necessarily uh fall into what societal gender norms are, but he could still be straight. But he might want to, I don't know, paint his nails and wear a dress and whatever. But he still enjoys women, like Prince. You could say Prince fell under the queer category, or you could say at times with Tupac, like uh, depending on which image of Tupac people get, but the more artsy Tupac definitely fell under a more queer perspective, took on some things that was like, hey, or seemed to at least bend the line. So it's like,
But someone could even accuse Cameron of wearing
for
pink
sure,
to be
for
like,
sure,
queer,
for
because
sure.
that's not heteronormative.
For sure, 100%. And I think it's funny because somebody like you look at a Cameron, but then you also look at a Big L who before he passed, his whole movement was flamboyant entertainment. Like we're outside of the norms. We're gonna push this stuff because but in that he's also pushing the streets is played out and everything else like that. Like there's other messaging he's tying to it, but yeah, because a part of it is that wow factor, that shock factor, because it is so counterculture or counter norm. But it's like when it's done in that way or the entertainment way, it's seen as like fun or progressive, but without the rotten tomato being thrown at your head.
So you do
Whereas
it for
when
entertainment purposes.
huh?
You
Yeah,
do it
it's for entertainment purposes in a sense, or the shock value purposes.
exactly.
On the flip side, you look at like a Lil Nas
I
X
was just
who,
gonna say,
yeah, like
why can't Lil Nas get the pass then? If Cameron can wear pink and do things for shock value, why can't Lil Nas be?
because he mean that shit,
Because he what?
because he means that shit.
What do you mean?
Like it's different. It's different. It's different. Like if a Cameron is doing something flamboyant, but he's from what we know is a straight male, right? Then there's the shock value of, oh my god, like here's a straight man breaking the rules, right? But if a gay man is just doing a whole bunch of gay shit, like you're not really breaking any rules.
Is he
But
gay?
but how do you
I
know?
don't fucking know. He
But,
talk like he's gay. He say he
but
gay.
here's the
Fucking
question,
know.
He
right?
could be doing something for the shock value too.
Here's the question to what Will was saying. How do you know Little Nas X is gay? How do you know Cameron is straight?
I don't
Right?
know.
Because at the end of the day, none of us are in their bedroom seeing who they're
Right.
sleeping with.
Yeah, for sure.
And at the
For
end
sure.
of the day, even if Cameron slept with a man, that doesn't mean that he's gay.
He just
Huh?
has sex with men. He just has sex with men.
Wait.
Because
Whoa.
we could talk about that too. Are you, if you just participate in sexual activity, you have to now accept the identity? It's real. There are people who are denying their identity, and who's to say that they're denying it? They just don't identify with that. They just enjoy sex with the same gender, and they just don't identify with the gay label. Because what they're to them, they feel like that's just what I do in the bedroom, but I don't identify with the culture. I don't identify with the identity.
Okay, so you cannot like you are not culturally gay. You're just
No,
like
it's called sexual fluidity.
okay. No, because isn't sexual fluidity meaning that it's man, women, whatever you just find attractive type shit like that's the fluid part,
Right.
right?
So my point was, if Cameron slept with the guy, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's gay.
He just slept with a guy that one time. He may want to go back to girls or whatever. So that's the fluidity part that Antoine is talking about.
I don't know if that's fluid. That sounds like a leaky faucet. Like you cut the faucet on real quick, you ain't gonna cut that bitch.
So
Fluidity
then you are discriminating. So if that's the case, then you're discriminating against bisexual people.
I'm not discriminating against them because that's different.
Bisexual people
Because
like both.
yeah, but a bisexual person actively likes both. He didn't just cut. He didn't just say, "Oh yeah, that one time," and then cut the person. Like I don't think that
definition. It says the concept of sexual fluidity means that sexuality can change over time and in different situations. For example, you may identify as straight, but develop an attraction to someone who is genderqueer. So, there's that fluidity. Like I don't prescribe to whatever, identity because I might like one today and like one tomorrow. So you're saying that's more confusion than somebody who has agreed or accepted that they like both?
I'm saying all this shit is confusing. We're just like, but at the like, and I think because it's confusing, it's always going to be a can of worms that if I'm talking about a bigger entity who decides whether or not they want to pick it up. Because at the end of the day, before any business entity or fraternal entity or anything else like that put their stamp of approval on it, America had to put their stamp of approval on it. Whereas you can see in other countries is talking about we ain't rocking with that. And if you here and you do that, we gonna jail you, we gonna persecute you, we
But
gonna
that's the whole concept of the freedoms of America, where you are free to be whoever you want to be.
but
And you
it, but
have to fit. You don't have to
okay,
fit
but we can't not acknowledge that it's a certain level of freedom in America, but every freedom in America was fought for. Even America to have its name was fought for. Even I mean, it was stripped from people who was just living
right,
on the
but they
land.
didn't
Like,
fight
but
it for a straight country. They didn't fight it for a heterosexual country. They fought it
eh,
to be whoever you want to be.
eh,
And in the
eh,
Constitution that says we fight
eh.
for only the straight people, and
I,
that are
but I think I think that's why I say it gets confusing because the lines are always going to blur. Because you could say, okay, our founding fathers fought for a free country, but also had slaves. So it's like they had to deal with that conflict. That conflict led to civil war. Civil war leads to civil rights. Where it's like, damn, like so it's like, and then you're talking about it's the same fight, well, not the same exact fight, but in premise, the same fight of saying, okay, the freedom and the true level of freedom is only based on how accepted you are in this place that's supposed to be the land of the free. So you can be in the land of the free but not accepted, and now you're bottom of the totem pole. So it's easier for you to be persecuted, it's easier for you to be hated, it's easy for you to be discriminated against, so on and so forth.
but
So I think
if we can move past accepting blacks or imported Africans
eh,
and be identified as black now, right? Because they're no longer slave. If we can move that progressive needle to accept individuals to be whoever they are from wherever they are, why is it so hard to accept what people do in the privacy of their home?
because there's always going to be the thought of if this is what you do in the privacy of your home, the key word in that is privacy. So it's like why should it be accepted in public if this is supposedly a private act?
Because we accept you being a heterosexual in public.
And you know what? Maybe that's that because I was gonna ask how, and then I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's just my privilege. Like
It
I
is
don't, you know what I'm
privilege.
saying? Because
No one
I
tells you
would.
you can't kiss somebody in public or that you can't hold their hands or you can't do anything
No,
that
that's a fact.
and
That's
so
a fact.
now you are limiting the freedom expressions of someone who because of their sexual interests,
Yeah.
like so that's the topic here.
But that's okay. But so to Antoine's earlier point, like which is more correct. It's like because I fall under the side of it that's more towards the norm, quote unquote, the norm, then I can easily. I'm now standing, at least in this specific topic, in the same position our forefathers were standing on when they're talking about yeah, we're fighting for freedom, but we have slaves. It's like, yeah, I want to take my girl out and have a nice evening, but there's a bunch of prejudice on this side of the fence that says, yeah, it's great to do that, but they can't, and it's going to be an issue. But it's like, I don't think personally, if we're talking about any type of minority group, I don't think there is really like acceptance per se. I think that there's just enough tolerance to shut the group up, you know. And it's a lot. I know, like my parents. If I'm gonna bring like a older generation, my parents' mindset is they've already got their rights. It's already been accepted by America. Who cares if I don't want to see it on TV or I don't want to see it in public or I don't want to see it in the spaces that we hold? I think so. If I know that that's that generation and that generation raised me, then and I know my friends still have a hard time being accepting around people of the LGBTQ space, then I know that it's not completely gone, even though there's been a lot of progress, even though there's been a lot of things that have changed. So if I'm talking about a major organization that is more so promoting, I would think, a traditional sense of masculinity, along with all the other things that are actually in their principles or constitution and things of that nature, I can understand where the old guards who still has the power is saying, you know what, we ain't gonna touch that.
But as an organization that has fought for change and has been progressive to a degree as times have changed, it baffles me that we get stuck here and we can't be just as radical and progressive as we were back when times were changing previously.
Well, that's the difference between something that affects everybody and something that affects a few people. The black and white was affecting every black person, whether they liked it or not, gay or straight. To your point, whereas me as a heterosexual person, I wake up, I don't necessarily have to walk in that. So therefore, trying to rile this side of the fence up to say, hey, this is important because remember, it was you on a completely different spectrum. I think is a little different.
Well, so here's the
for
thing.
For me, this is it, right? So
Okay.
I had to cut my hair. Sorry, I was highly suggested because my fraternal organization would never require me to do anything to become a member. Let me put that as a disclaimer. However, it was highly suggested that I removed the length of hair that I had on the top of my head because it was, it was the right thing to do to look a certain way, right? And so now, in this day and age, the people who are being presented as new members have so many freedoms that I did not have, right? Is it fair for me to then say, no, well, I had to cut my hair, so they gotta cut their hair too, right? So
I don't
move to that acceptance and say, my time was my time,
Yeah.
and now we have gay members. So why is it so hard to accept?
I don't think,
and not now because gay members have been there from the beginning of time. But
to that point, I don't think it's quote unquote fair for you to say that. But if you did, I don't think you would be wrong in that premise if it's also something that you've experienced. So you're not saying anything. If you said it, you're not saying anything different than what was said to you. If you say, if you're seeing the change and you're saying, well, hey, there was a time where I couldn't do that and now they can do that, like it may sting a little bit because it's like, damn, people weren't that progressive at my time, but at the same time, it could also be something that you kind of relish in because you in that time you might have thought, this is stupid, but whatever. Whereas their time, the stupidity of it finally came to pass, and it's like, we just can get rid of that. So I think
that's the same thing about acceptance of the sexuality. That
I think so. Yeah.
Upon a time, it was a bad thing. You're not supposed to do it because it was, tied to whatever thing, religion, whatever. But now we have progressed to 2024 where people are gay.
Where it's not necessarily a bad thing, but we ain't gotten the awkwardness out of it yet. Like the awkwardness ain't gone. Like because the awkwardness ain't gone in anything. The awkwardness ain't gone in racism.
Who is it
like
awkward to?
The awkwardness of gay versus straight is not gone.
Who is awkward? Who's awkward? The heterosexual person, or is it the gay person? Because the gay person, they awkward being whoever they are.
I think if
you feel awkward not being accepted.
Not being accepted. Whereas
be awkward.
Huh?
Who's making them feel awkward?
You would say anybody who's displaying homophobia is making them feel awkward.
Right.
So we can say that heterosexual people probably display it more. So then we can say heterosexual people are leading the charge of making them feel awkward. Right. So from that perspective, I'm saying in 2024, we've grown to a place where it's awkward. But we've also grown from the places of bushes, don't ask, don't tell, to an Obama's passing of gay rights in America, or at least the right to marry. And that was like what, 2009, 2010?
10 years ago.
All right, so we only 10 years into this. Like to think if a generation is every 20 years, and it takes 2 or 3 generations to kind of flip the mold. Like y'all ain't even got a generation into this yet. Y'all can keep going, yo.
We hold both hands, and I want to bring this, and I don't know, we might have to make this a part 2 because I want to bring in the topic of misogyny into this.
Okay,
is misogyny the reason why that there is hatred towards homosexuals?
Like a disdain towards femininity.
Femininity, right? Because femininity is it's associated with homosexuality, and we're talking about male same gender.
You could you could say that. Like if you said that, I don't think you're necessarily wrong. But at the same time, it's like, what about femininity in men is seen as a danger and is dangerous?
Right, but what is it about the femininity expression that a predominantly masculine, whoever has an issue with it? Why is it not because you hate women?
Well, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to say we hate women. We don't. So I mean, let's call it a spade, right? the most disrespected person in America is a black woman.
Black woman, yeah. Mm-hmm. So where do we go from there? Because if I see one more video,
so you're telling me,
because I'm finished with it. So you've never seen these videos like, hey man, a dude shouldn't be eating on ice cream cone, or hey man, a dude shouldn't be trying on clothes, man. You know your size. Why you in a change room trying on clothes? You know your size. Hey man, why a dude eating a glizzy? Like, you gonna eat that glizzy like that? You gonna eat that banana like that? Like, why is it that men have to have all of these things to prevent themselves from looking a certain way?
Well, nobody want, and this is why I say it's like the old guard of like not showing any weakness. And now we all know, we all know it's a lie. Right. I think we should start there. Everybody sitting at the table knows that this is a lie. It's just the to some people, the lie is better than the truth. To some people, they lean towards the lie because the truth ain't ready to be acknowledged. And to some people, they understand the truth, but have to deal with the ramifications of the lie. And I think if we're talking about being progressive and moving towards a certain level of progression, you're getting more and more people to understand that some of the things that are held up or the standards that are in place don't necessarily service all of us or any of us, but until we can get to the point of understanding how to have a proper conversation around what strength is, then we won't ever get to have that conversation about how to appreciate what weakness is. Because in all honesty, I would say weakness in most men, if they grow up in any sense of a traditional sense, is stomped out. And if it's not stomped out by your dad, it's going to be stomped out by the kids. And if it's not stomped out by the kids, as you get older, it's just going to be stomped out by whoever you run into who ain't developed enough to understand that this is a lie. So but I also don't know if loving women more is about to change people's perception on like homosexuals. I don't know. I don't know if I can stand on
It's not loving women more. It's about maintaining a patriarchy, usually for misogyny, meaning that you want to have
dominion over women.
Over women, yes.
Okay, but dominion. What? Okay, but dominion over. Even if you want to maintain dominion over women, what does that have to do with men, homosexual men?
That's what I'm saying. Like, so anything that that could be seen as a threat to the patriarchy, the
Okay.
hierarchy of the man being the head of the family, the head of the household, the head of anything.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that is seen that could be seen as a threat is
Mm-hmm.
now, like, again, that's what misogyny is.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily that you necessarily hate women, but you want to make sure that women stay in their place because you want to have dominion according to this
You don't want to lose. You don't want to lose your access to power.
So
exactly.
so
Okay.
so so let me ask this question, right?
All right.
Um, did the thought of what? Okay, I wonder
Okay.
if the thought of what we perceived as gay, like Will was saying, these videos trying on clothes in a dressing room, eating ice cream, eating a glizzy or banana or something, right, is now all of a sudden considered super soft, right? And makes a man look gay, right? Did that come from men or did that come from women and how they perceive or want their man? So let me say this, right? In the 60s and 70s, men wore bell bottoms. They wore what we call hoochie daddy shorts. They wore shoes that had those big heels in them. Nobody was calling those people gay for what they were wearing. It was the style. But if you see somebody wearing that now, they're gay.
But is that necessarily coming from women, or is that coming from over sexualization?
Well, that's the question I'm asking.
Because I don't know if I can put over sexualization on primarily on women.
Well, I'm not putting it primarily on women, but a lot of these videos that Will is referencing to,
Mm-hmm.
some of those videos come from women saying, "Oh, I don't want my man wearing this, or I don't want my man doing this, or I don't want my man doing that," because in their minds, it is
Mm-hmm.
not what they picture as a masculine man.
But women can be misogynist too, right?
Yeah,
Yes, I know.
Because
but this.
if they believe in that concept of patriarchy and they
Mm-hmm.
want to maintain that, they're of course going to spread the propaganda to make sure that it's spread to everybody to know that if you do this, then it is an offense to what male masculinity or whatever it is that they are trying to defend is.
Hey, we all
So
probably
it
got a
doesn't.
little misogyny in this,
Huh?
in some way, shape, or form.
Well, I mean, like it. Well, I cringe because I went through. Not I went through, but like how Facebook gives you these memories, and it was once upon a time Antoine came over to my apartment, and or did you crash on my? I can't even remember, but I actually had made breakfast, and it was brunch at Will's. That was the caption, and they were like, "What? Two men having brunch at an apartment? Y'all need some bitches up in there to clean that up." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "You think I'm fucking Antoine?" Like, and there's
God.
been so many times that I've been accused of having a relationship, a sexual relationship with my line brother, just because I care enough about him that when I made breakfast, that I didn't make just eggs just for me. I made eggs for him too. Like when did that become like two men can't, you know, like cook and whatever and share food? So that's what I'm saying. Like all these things come from a space of people who are insecure. We haven't talked about that a lot. A lot of this is insecurity because
For sure.
they are fears again of having something be in power or be represented that they may end up being the minority
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
or
I
may
totally agree.
threaten their dominion. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And so that's why people, it doesn't even matter what identities that you have. Whenever
Yeah.
we hear these things in the spaces that we do, that we don't just, oh yeah, ha ha ha, whatever. Like we squash that shit from the beginning because ultimately that's what I want to get to is like how do we solve this issue? Because I don't want to just talk about the gripe. how do we bring both sides to the middle? Because we have gays who feel like, I'm just going to shove it down their throat. I'm going to attack the fraternal organizations and spam them or whatever. And then we got the other side of the extreme where we have the homophobes that be like, nah, kick them out, like all this stuff, like put them on blast. Like, how do we bring those two people?
Well, I don't think you can ever bring the extremes together. So they kind of just got to be what they are. I think you would just hope that, because the extremes on both sides got to get over their own fears and insecurities enough to want to have a productive conversation. So, like, they're kind of on their own devices. But the people who want to get to a place where there's there's space for both without necessarily stigma being passed. I mean, the only thing I would say to them is like, bro, analyze your own circle and ask yourself, are you in community with anybody who falls under those communities? Meaning, if you're from the LGBTQ community, are you in community with people who are straight? If you're straight, are you in community with people who are of the LGBTQ community?
That's why they came to that organization, hopefully seeking brotherhood, that it did not matter who I was, that you're going to love me no matter what as your brother, right? So that's what we're talking about, the responsibility of the fraternity. And so going back to the original concept, if they don't recognize Pride Month, are they picking a side
Yeah.
in this situation? And
But I think they already did. And realistically, if you don't want to pick up that can and open it, pick your side, because it's the only way that because if you pick a side and you keep kicking the can down the road, then at the very least, people who are of the community of the can being kicked know exactly where they stand in those people's eyes. And until it's
not going away, it's not.
I'm not saying it's going away.
That's what I'm gonna say. Like, they're not just gonna accept it.
I'm not.
It's gonna amplify and it's gonna get worse.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's going away. I'm saying
what's gonna be the kicker is when that community and your membership decides to stop paying dues and being active in your organization, and you feel the brunt of it because you realize that a good number of your organization belongs to that community.
Yeah, but I still think okay, if let's play this out. If a good body of that community falls under that umbrella, right? But they're not the ones in power as of right now.
Yeah.
Right? Then if we're playing out the natural place of succession, if right now it's the minority, but it gets to a place where it's either 50-50 or now 60-40 or whatever, you know who is going to pick up that can? The people who have felt the brunt of that kick. So I think it's a situation where right now, if the powers that be in the old guard is kicking the can, you let them kick the can because they're not ready to.
It's only motivating them.
So you're saying we got to continue to be oppressed until the old people die off?
I'm not saying you can. Well, yeah, in a sense, like, okay, until civil rights was passed, people was fighting through the oppression, but they were still oppressed. Shouldn't go away. And even when it was passed, the fight's not going to stop. And I'm not telling people to stop fighting. I'm saying just because you're trying to get to change don't mean you about to live to see the change you want. And even when you live to see the change you want, you still got to grow to a space where you can see it, accept that it was, and then also accept that it wasn't your reality that you got to grow up in, but somebody else gets to enjoy that reality. So, like, I'm not telling you stop fighting, but I'm not saying that the oppression that is, or the oppression that has the power or is, creating the general landscape, you can fight all you want, but until you get to the place where you either somebody's taking up the mantle to change it, or people in that community have the power now to take up the mantle to change it, the true changes, the stuff that's actually going to make a difference or start really changing people's mindsets towards these things, isn't going to happen until that can is picked up. And if people don't want to pick it up, my mindset is, hey, let them keep kicking it.
Here's my thing: if racist people had to build a bridge and accept that we had a black president, Barack
Mm-hmm.
Obama, then guess what? I think everybody should learn how to build a bridge and realize that there are diverse people in their organization. And what I will say, and so I tell that to those who are against, inclusion and all this stuff, like it ain't going away. And what I say to those who are oppressed is the way to, like you're recommending, the way to make change is to be active.
For
So
sure.
if you want to make change, that means you need to pay your dues. That means you need to start running for positions in your fraternity, in your organizations, in your chapter level, regional, state, national, wherever, if you want to make change. But you cannot scream from outside the door kicking, because they're not going to listen. So I just wanted to make sure that we get to that point as we wrap up, because the message of this episode should, at least at the very, very, very bare minimum, should be tolerance. Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
Because tolerance comes before acceptance.
For sure.
And
sure.
so we can't erase people. We can't kick them out because of their sexuality or whatever their identity is, because we are a non-discriminatory organization. So because of that, the way that we walk down the middle, hopefully for those who are interested on creating safe spaces for everybody's identity, is that we have to call it out. So all these jokes about gays or whatever, if you are heterosexual, or even if you are gay and you're hearing this, you should speak up about it, because if it makes you feel uncomfortable, regardless of your identity, even if they're not talking about you, but if they're talking about somebody that you care about, then you should speak up about it. Otherwise, your silence is seen as conformity and acceptance of the negativity, and we don't promote that on this platform at all. We are here to shine light on the darkness, shame the devil, tell the truth, all that stuff. We are bare naked here, and that's why it's called the Naked Truth. So, any last words?
Yeah, I just want to say that while people may not feel that it may affect them directly, right? It does still affect you, because this could be your brother, your sister, your auntie, your cousin,
mother.
your son, your daughter. Like, it may not affect you directly, but it still may affect you in some way, shape, or form, which is why you should advocate and fight for the community.
I would say before you get to advocating, be open and honest and ready for discussions with that community. Whether if you're in it or if you're outside of it. And I think if you can't get to the place where you're even willing to have the discussion, then shut the fuck up.
So wait, before we go, do you have any recommendations on how to be an ally?
Well, personally, I go back and forth with allyship, because I don't necessarily know if people who aren't of the community can really be allies per se. Like I think allyship does a lot more harm than good, because I feel like that's what kind of leaves some of the bad standards. But I think what I can tell people is you have to understand that you don't know shit about shit when it comes to that walk or that lifestyle. So therefore, if you find yourself speaking more than you're listening, then you're doing that shit wrong. So that's what I would tell people.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we did a good job holding everybody accountable, both sides, up, down, left, or right. And hopefully we have exposed some areas for you to take back, have healthy discussions in your spaces. And that's why we hope you tune in every time to listen to another episode of The Naked Truth.
Let's get naked.
Let's get naked.
Thank you for listening to The Naked Truth. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and follow us on all social media platforms at The Naked Truth.